Hello, thank you for joining me for my YouTube channel. My name is Savannah. I am the creator of Night Rider Cafe. Some of you might be already familiar with me from my podcast, Night Rider Cafe. I've decided to do a YouTube channel because I want to show my face. I want to give people the opportunity to get personal with me. Not too personal, but I understand it makes a difference to deliver a message and to see the person's face that's delivering the message. But understand, I'm not going to go into depth on certain topics on YouTube. This will just be a way for me to give you short briefings and for you to see my face. So, what is the podcast about? The podcast is about sexuality, religion, spirituality, sexuality. Everything taboo that we were taught that we should not pay attention to, these things meant nothing. And come to find out, especially for us, Scorpio, Pluto generation, and Libra, Pluto and Libra generation, these things, these two subject matters that these two signs rule over relationships, finding out new ways to function in relationships. That's Pluto and Libra. And as for us, Pluto and Scorpio generation, our main thing is to break away from the old way of doing things and finding out a new way. But understanding, once you get into spirituality, you realize that everything moves in cycles. Everything happens, everything that's happening has already happened. Everything that needs to happen has already happened. Everything that's happening has already happened. So, spirituality, how this planet works, our understanding of it is that it's a continuous cycle. Now, it might be different attributes, different circumstances to these cycles and how they come around, but the solution will always be similar to what it was in the past. We just have to make those adjustments to get the outcomes that are most favorable for us. So, as we catapult ourselves into this age of Aquarius, we need to take a time to reflect on the things that we have left, but also go back to the things that re-remembering. Remembering, tapping into our genetics to have that awakening. Because the truth is, messages are transferred already to us from the lives that, the lineages that we have already come through. So, epigenetics is real. They're really starting to talk about this. Um, it was a study done in India saying how the colonization of India has a genetic effect on how Indians process food now, and this is one of the reasons why India has a high diabetes rate, because their bodies is holding on to the nutrients and holding on to it for too long. Why? Because epigenetics, I think I'm saying it right, but the genetic memory, the remembering that they were starving at one point in time when they were under colonial rule. So this is how the body, this is how uh, ancestors had to deal with this. And it comes down in us. Trauma is transferred, not just through your experiences, but the experiences of those that have come through your line. So on my YouTube, on my podcast, I'm sorry, I've touched on this topic before, and it's something that we really need to dig into, especially, like I said, as we are catapulting ourselves into this age of Aquarius. I personally don't believe we are in the age of Aquarius as of yet. I do believe we are at the cusp. I do believe that we are getting the genetic upgrades naturally, um, just going by the solar flares, just going by the things that we have experienced astrologically, just going by the temperament of this planet, just going by the food that we have been getting, and also people's consciousness. It all has been changing. Some will say consciousness has been changing for the better. Others will say, all they see around us has been conflict and war. And if we're going to be completely honest, Pluto and Scorpio generation, we haven't known any type of peace. It's always been constant war, constant fighting, and turmoil. So, like I said, Pluto and Scorpio generation. This will be, I'm 33, I think. I think I'm 33. I could be 34. I really have no concept of time. After 30, why would I have to keep on counting? Like, it's no need to continue to count anymore. I'm 30. Um, but yeah, that 30-year-old generation, right? To the generation, the 40s, right? 40-year-olds will be like Pluto and Libra generation. So us, like I said, us two generations, we are the generation of the parents, of the ones that will be able to live and build the age of Aquarius, right? What we are doing is we're tearing down the old institutions. That's our role. We're reanalyzing the importance of relationships, and not just relationships, intimate relationships, not just family relationships, but your relationships with work also. And this is where also Pluto and Scorpio comes in, because it's the dealing of contracts, right? So we're weighing what is really important to us. So these two generations are realizing that this is not fulfilling me. We are not getting the same fulfillment that the previous generations got before us. So this is what's causing this upheaval. This is what's causing this death and rebirth. We're still going through the death process on on a global scale. I would say we're still going through a death process. We've had many of things that have happened within the last 5 years, not the last two, not the last three, but 5 years. A lot of things have happened on this planet that has made people raise the vibration and start thinking differently and start moving differently to get different outcomes for what they want out of life. A lot of these two generations, Pluto and Libra and Pluto and Scorpio generation, we really can't work, right? Unless we're working for ourselves. This is the other evolution. I see it moving forward, Age of Aquarius, that especially heading towards that, not going into it, but heading towards it, I see more contract workers. I see the whole employer and employee dynamic changing. I see institutions, big companies especially, opting to give people contracts. Now, what those contracts will look like, I'm not too sure, but I see more of a contract working type of future. And that because a lot of Pluto in Libra and a lot of Pluto and Scorpio generation don't have the energy level to get up and to work for somebody else every day of their life. These two generations, like I said, are the generations, are the group of peoples that ask, what makes me truly happy? So what a lot of us done in our, I would say before we were 25, we worked for someone else, right? I think once we start cracking about 30, that's when we realize, okay, this is is not for me. I probably will still work here, but this isn't for me. How do I break myself out of this chain? How do I find my own path? No, they're saying, coming from the States, that this is the great resignation time, right? Because people are really prioritizing their life and their happiness. Because no longer will we look outside of ourselves for fulfillment. We are going to start to look inward. And if we look at what has happened on this planet for the last 5 years, like I said, 5 years, these are things that have made people question what truly makes them happy. And not, I would say 5 years made us think, made us remember again what we saw. Pluto and Scorpio generation, like I said, we saw war. We constantly was fed that. We are the first generation, right? I will say this, we saw the towers fall in New York City. We saw that. And we've known constant war. We know Iraq. We know Iran. We know Afghanistan. We've seen this constantly. I'll be honest, I can't really say I remember Somalia. I don't even I I can't say that. But I remember Afghanistan because I was in middle school. I remember watching the towers fall. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is so unbelievable. And I remember what happened after that. So for us to see that and for us to constantly see that, a lot of us have questioned now our value systems. This is a subconscious thing. This wouldn't be just outright, right? Because a lot of the times we saw what came back from those wars. That the shell, not the individual, but the shell came back. And it made us question and it made us value things differently. And also remember, a lot of us, our parents, lost greatly in that recession that followed. The 2008 recession. It's a lot that we have seen. We have always been up in the air, but we were built for it because we are the ones that are going to demolish the institutions that no longer serve a purpose for us. We are the ones that are going to rebuild. And I know that for a lot of people, especially if you're not into spirituality, you will probably say, this sounds so hocus pocus. But if you just take a look at the news and look at how many people are actually going towards entrepreneurship, that are quitting their jobs, relocating to do something that they like or to do nothing at all. I'll just think about what I actually like and what deserves my talents. This is what we are here to do. So, on this channel, right? On this channel, we're going to discuss many of things. So, I'm Bermudian. I relocated to the UK about 3 years ago. Like I said, concept of time, I don't have. I don't have it. So, sorry. I have two boys. I was in an unhealthy relationship. I hated my job. I went from loving what I done. I worked in a psychiatric hospital on a ward specializing with seniors that had psychiatric past and now they're aging. Before that, I worked on a continuing care unit at the General Hospital. Before that, I worked in a rest home. Before that, I worked in a dental office, government dental office. And before that, I worked in a private dental office. So I know care. I know healthcare. I can see the flaws within healthcare. I see the flaws within the institution of hospitals. Um, Not saying that it's completely flawed, not saying that it needs to be completely done away with, but how we approach health definitely needs to be looked at, because it's certain things that it's not being conveyed to the clients, and this is where you get a lot of mistreatment. And I'm not laughing because it's funny, but it's not just mistreatment of staff mistreating clients, but also clients because they're not getting what they know is what they need, but nobody can advocate for them. It's just a whole big, what a freaking mess this is, right? Like I said, Pluto and Libra, Pluto and Scorpio, we are built for this. And a lot of times when we rise up in these institutions, we will often meet conflicts. And the conflicts that we will meet will usually be from the generations that are previous to us. Because these in that generation really and truly is the guardian, right? They're the guardians of those institutions. They reap the benefit of this world. Probably the best, I would say, because their parents didn't get to reap the benefits as well as how they have. This is the baby boomer generation, right? They got the the best, right? They got it all, everything that they wanted, they pretty much got. But their issue was, in my opinion, right? The baby boomers was the ones that got divorced. So they set the standard for the Pluto and Libra to be able to leave relationships, restructuring of relationships. Daddy left the house. So that makes it a little bit easier for me to say, I'm gonna leave too. Now, we will go deeper on these topics, but I just want to give you a briefing of how I actually think. And if you resonate with what I'm saying, then please hit the subscribe button and let's keep on going. Especially for us melanated people, I think how we look at relationships really needs to be examined, because we're looking at somebody often enough. Our standard of what love often enough, our standard of what a healthy relationship is not somebody that is reflective of who we are and where we come from. But yet, we want that. So we want that, but we don't know how to achieve that, because a lot of the times we haven't seen that. A lot of the times we're only seeing that on TV. And TV only shows you the good parts. It doesn't really show you the fucked up parts about it. Not to mention, my family structure didn't really set me up to deal with that. And what am I talking about? Me personally, my parents were married, but when I was 3 years old, my parents decided to move the family to St. Petersburg, Florida. And we were in St. Pete for about 3, 4 years. No, not my dad. My dad stayed in Bermuda, and he would travel back and forth between St. Pete and Bermuda. I don't know what it's like to live in a household with a man. I really don't. I know a man to come every once in a while, consistently schedule visits, spend money, play with the children, everything set up nicely for them. But to be around masculine energy consistently, I find it to be draining. And then I done my self reflection on I tried to live with my son's father, and that did not work out. So afterwards, like coming out here, reflecting on how I actually was raised and looking at how that affected my relationships and my dynamic with man, I came to the realization that I don't know masculine energy in a household consistently. I don't know what it's like to come home and expect Diddy to come home every day. When my daddy came to visit, it was like holiday time, right? It was like, yes, we're gonna go do stuff because daddy's the fun parent, right? Daddy takes us, we go do stuff, even if we're not gonna spend money. Like, the point is, we're doing something. You're taking me out my comfort zone and you're showing me something I ain't never seen. And when I look at man, this is what I look for. This is what I like. So I have been a lady that opts to be number two. Number two, whether that's with how his career, whether that's him already being in relationships. And I really don't have any type of shame in that, because the truth is that's how I felt comfortable. Now, when I start dating again, would I want to be number two? We'll have to talk about that later. But just me realizing and self reflecting, like I said, and evolving as a woman, I realized that I don't know masculine energy consistently, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. And we need to stop being honest about what we're willing to put in a relationship to get the outcomes that we need. And the truth is, I really don't see nothing wrong with how I was brought up. Like, I do wish that um when my parents did eventually get a divorce and we did move back to Bermuda, that my dad was a little bit more consistent in my life. Now, that's not to say he wasn't existent, but he didn't come around. And if we wanted to see him, we had to call him. If we wanted to spend time with him, we would have to call. He never called us to see how we were doing. He never just said, let me go check on my children or how you are in school. It was none of that. So that even further reiterated a good sign, because as I'm getting older, I'm going to call you for money. And that's exactly what happened. My daddy turned into a bank. And I don't know anybody else's situation, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of people can relate to this. And just some insight on my dad. My dad has passed, but my daddy was Bermudian, but my father's father came from Barbados. And one thing about West Indian man is that they're not the most vocal, especially that old generation. Because my papa was put on a boat when he was 14. 14 put on a boat. How do you think he was taught his relationships with women? How where you think he learned that? And how do you really, like, reflecting on looking back at your family? You have to look at your parents, your grandparents as children if you want clarification in what happened to your parent, and in turn why this has happened to you. Look at your parents, grandparents as children, and that's where you find out the truth. 14 years old, put on a boat from Barbados, stayed on the boat till he was about in his 30s, met my mom in Bermuda, decided to come off the boat and get married to her. You know, these people done the best with what they had. And what they had was, especially West Indians, and this is a no shade to West Indians, but even to this day, a lot of West Indian men have that mentality. If I provide financially for you, that means I love you. Don't expect me to tell you I love you. And this is a wound that we have to heal. And you'll see, like, even still, like my friends that are like my daddy, where they have a West Indian parent and a Bermudian parent, when we talk about it, they're able to recognize it also. So my daddy recognized it later in life after he had given us the moon, right? Where he said, I felt like if I just went away, because my mom remarried, it would have been best for you children. Now, do I think that's a dub? Yeah, I think that is kind of a dub. But I also believe that because he didn't know what that looked like, reverting back to old West Indian man, if I pay that means I love you. So the complexities of our parents and our grandparents, all of that shapes how we approach not just relationships with romantic relationship, but also family dynamics. Like I said, these are all topics that I want to discuss on this channel. Please hit the subscribe button and let's keep on diving deeper. So that's a brief family history. That is my opinion on, well, not my opinion, but just to give you an insight on how I look at love and relationships. I really don't have anything to hide. I do believe that having open and honest, frank conversations is how we're going to move forward, for us to all have understanding. And going back to what I said about being number two, I know we are in this culture where is the main chick versus the so-called side piece. Really and truly, in my opinion, it comes down to whoever you want to be in life, right? Who you are at that point in time. You got a lot of people that are with so-called main girls, but really and truly, she's a side chick. She don't have the energy to level to maintain a type of healthy relationship. You know, she really needs to focus on herself instead of focusing on you. And I'm not saying that people need to, everybody should be a man girl. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying I'm not for side piece culture, but I am for people being honest about what they're willing to give and being honest about that, because a lot of people know they just want slam. I just want good times. Don't come over here with too many of your feelings, because I don't have energy for it. Right? I don't think that's something to be shameful of. And like I said, we really need to start having these uncomfortable discussions about these taboo subjects, because for too long they've been left in the dark, but everybody's done it. Like, don't tell me you didn't sit at somebody's papa's funeral and all of a sudden you find out that these people have a whole nother freaking family. Like, let's stop romanticizing these relationships when really and truly these relationships are more complex than what we're led to believe, and usually came to light at the end of somebody's life. So let's just be honest about what we want, what we're willing to give, and let's just see where it goes, because clearly lying ain't been working. We have so many destroyed homes, destroyed children, because People didn't want to be honest about what they really wanted. Also, on this channel, I want to discuss I'm into astrology. I'm also getting into human design. I love it. I love learning new things because I do believe that these are the tools that we are going to need in the future, and not really just for ourselves. I do feel like astrology is a great tool, but I do feel like astrology isn't being used to its full potential. I think the focus needs to come off of us, right? And what this means, oh, it's a Mercury retrograde and da 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 da. No, like, I really do think we need to step back and use astrology to help our children. I feel like that is something that needs to be further discussed. That is something that people need to get comfortable doing, getting their baby's birth chart, looking at their children's gifts, and look at the things that they're going to struggle with in life, and say to yourself, no, how can I make this better for my child? But also remembering the struggles in life is usually what helps you in the long run. And your child has chosen you to come through for a specific reason and a specific lesson. So don't think that I'm saying that you need to change so much. I mean, really and truly, my son has Moon in Aquarius. And if anybody knows Moon in Aquarius and the relationship in astrology, the relationship, your moon is how you felt about your mother, the role your mother played in your life, right? And Aquarius, standoffish, blunt, straight to the point, weirdo. This is how my son sees me. Unconventional, right? Somewhat of a distant mother. And it's a hard moon to have because it's so, she's all over the place, right? Come on now, sit down, mommy. But she's innovative, she's inventive, right? But it is a dilemma there because this is where you're supposed to get your nurture. And really and truly, Aquarius isn't a nurturer, not in a sense, not like Cancer, right? She ain't got it. You know, and I am a little, me being a Aquarius, I am a little rough, you know. I really don't understand why you don't understand. But I understand not everybody can be like me. So, but anyway, that's just my brief introduction, with the accent, into my channel. Please listen to my podcast. You could catch it on anywhere. It's on Spotify, it's on Amazon. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for listening to Night Rider Call Night Rider Cafe. If I said Aquarii 88, that's my spiritual product business. But this channel, my podcast, is Night Rider Cafe. And thank you for joining me. I'll see. I'm gonna try my best to keep a video upload once a week. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you.